Omajnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshornamitanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Guru Gaur Gandharva Govinda Gringanaisaha Vande Prasadato Yesham Sarvaramba Shubhankaraha. So we're continuing with Sri Sri Prapanna-jivanamrtam, and we have reached chapter 4. So we went through Anukulyasya Sankalpa, the principle to accept everything that is favorable for our devotional cultivation, and now we've come to Pratikulya Vivarjanam, rejection of the unfavorable. And as we mentioned when we began the previous chapter, we must have both, in order to avail ourselves of the benefit that is there in connection with these two principles. We must perform both. We cannot only accept the favorable and also maintain what is unfavorable. We can also not just reject what is unfavorable and not give so much effort to embracing what is favorable. They go side by side. You can't have one without the other. And if we're embracing what is favorable without also trying to reject what is unfavorable, then we won't. The favorability of those favorable things, they will not be able to exert their full influence over us. We're still full with all these other things, so there's no space. We won't really feel the potency of these, positive elements. So we must strive for both. Of course, there's more emphasis on the positive engagement, accepting what is favorable. But at least when it comes to rejection of the unfavorable, what's really required of us is to just cooperate. Because the Lord, He will, make arrangements. He will approach us in different ways in our lives. And He will start pulling us away from those things. So it actually, the pull will come from the upper side. And what we have to do is just cooperate and move along with that. In the course of that, there will be some pain and some frustration, and but even if you're changing any bad habit, someone's like an alcoholic, there's going to be some pain there in giving that up, So that's to be accepted. Doesn't mean it's not normal and healthy. So we have to simply move with that flow, move with that higher current, and not resist, and not rigidly hold on to all of our attachments, whether in the form of gross material things or conceptions, mental conceptions that we may hold on to. And as we also mentioned previously, Srila Sridhar Maharaj has said, this is what constitutes progress. Elimination and new acceptance. Rejecting a lower conception for a higher conception. They must, those two side by side, that equals progress. So it's important for us to go through these things. Okay. Chapter 4, Sri Bhakta-vachanamritam, words of nectar from the devotees. Pratikulya Vivarjanam, rejection of the unfavorable. Bhagavad Bhakta, so this is Srila Sridhar Maharaj's first verse, his own original verse, which encapsulates the essence of this principle. Bhagavad Bhakta yor bhakte prapate pratikulake varjatve nishchaya prati kulya varjana uchyate. The principle to reject everything opposed to the service of the Lord and His devotee, and to similarly abstain from everything opposed to an attitude of surrender, is known as Pratikulya Vivarjanam, rejection of the unfavorable. Okay, now the first cited verse, this is another verse from Sri Shikshashtakam by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Pratikulya Varjana Sankalpa Darshaha. the ideal in the resolve to reject the unfavorable. Nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitamba jagadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatad bhaktir ahaitu ki tvaye. O Lord of the universe, I have no desire for wealth or worldly promotion, nor do I desire wife, family, and society, nor do I aspire for Vedic religiosity or mundane scholarship. The only aspiration in my heart is that in my every birth I may have unmotivated devotion for you. So this Param Gumraj is drawing the essence of this out. The ideal in the resolve to reject the unfavorable. So it's not that we're just about, rejecting things, rejecting unfavorable things, but really that's the outcome of, or at least in the ideal, that is the outcome of deep love, or the aspiration for love. So Mahaprabhu is expressing that here, that because I so deep, earnestly desire to have exclusive devotion for you, then I don't want anything else. It's not that I don't want all these other things in and of themselves, and of course they're undesirable anyway, but the main point here is the positive connection, that I'm so attracted to you, I want to give my whole self for you, to the extent that I don't want anything else. I don't want anything else, like to compete, with my consciousness. I want my whole consciousness to be exclusively fixed on you, my Lord. And in that, then all these other things, they will have to be rejected. And this, what Mahaprabhu is expressing here, this covers everything that anyone may want, that this world has to offer. Dhanam, wealth, riches, janam, followers, people, popularity, the comfort that comes from, having so many family members around you. All of these things, literally means people. So, people who, followers and all these things. Sundaram literally means a beautiful woman, but in a general sense we can understand, sensual enjoyment, sensual pleasure of any kind. And then kavitam, kavi is a poet, but the way that this is understood is it's actually a reference to liberation, because liberation is like it is moksha. It is something that is held so highly by most persons, at least with the Vedic understanding. Moksha is like that great wonderful thing that we can all hope to attain one day. But actually, that position of liberation, in terms of freedom from the negative side, it's not actually a substantial position. Without a connection, just freedom from the negative side, without entrance into the positive side, that's not a safe position. And eventually that person will have to come again to this world anyway. So it is mentioned, muktir hidvanya tadupam sarupena yavastiti. Real mukti means, real liberation means, when one has realized their sarup in the positive plane, in the positive plane of divinity, their divine. One has realized their divine intrinsic spiritual form in the transcendental plane. That is real liberation. So therefore, the idea here is that liberation is like flowery poetry, like it's not. There's nothing really substantial here. So that the analogy is given of a poet or poetry for liberation. So whatever this world has to offer and to be free from the entanglement of this world. I don't want, either of these two. Neither of these two proposals attract me. We can also put under here these things, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, right? These things that the Vedas are, and really, all objectives of humankind, they fall under those, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, actually. So that's, those fall under these, headings here also. I don't desire any of these things. My only desire is that mama janmani janmanishare. So he's saying, he's like making it more explicit here. Like, let me take birth again and again and again. Like, I'm not requesting to be free from that either. But my only desire, bhavatad bhakti or haituki tvai, your exclusive devotion. Unmotivated, selfless, free from my self-motivated interest. Have that kind of devotion for you, my Lord. It is a very powerful prayer of Mahaprabhu, and it really illustrates the purity of what Mahaprabhu was trying to give us. I mean, like, where else will you find such a pure expression that it's only about love, and to the exclusion of all else? It would be difficult to find such a clear and pure expression towards God. I'm just coming from this place of love and nothing else, an unconditional love. Love for the sake of love. Love for your satisfaction. And I'm taking nothing for myself. It would be very difficult to find. I mean, this is like this is the ultimate, celebration of love. How valuable is love, and in particular prema, divine love? How valuable is that? How precious is that? That's being highlighted here. If one can have a touch of that, one will feel, what will be their response? How precious is this connection with Lord Krishna? That if one can have just a touch of that, this will be their feeling. That this is so precious, nothing else matters. If I can just maintain some conscious connection with this, if I can just maintain the aspiration for this, the hope that I'll get this one day, then everything else, it can be rejected. Okay, then we have another prayer here by Kula Shekhar. Atrapi tataiva is similar expression of the same ideal. Nashta dharmena vasu nichaye naiva kama po boge yad yad bhavyam bhavatu bhagavan purva karmanurupam etat pratyam mama bahu matam janma janmantarepi tvat padam baruva yuga gata nischala bhaktir astu. O Lord, I have no faith in religiosity, economic development. So this is more explicitly dharma, artha, and kam. Economic development or sense enjoyment. May all these things come to pass as they are ordained according to my previous karma. But my earnest prayer is that birth after birth I may have unflinching devotion for your lotus feet. So, according to my karma, all these things, they may come and go in my life. Let them come and go as they're supposed to. I don't care. Let that whole thing cycle out as it's supposed to. But this is the only thing I'm fixed on. This is the only desire that I hold within my heart. And I was meditating a few days ago, and it's a similar expression by Nanda Maharaj, which is extraordinary because Nanda Maharaj is Nanda Maharaj, he's Krishna's father. But he makes a similar, he's an eternal associate, intimate associate. But he has a similar prayer when Uddhava, and it's so humble because this is when Uddhava is leaving Vrindavan. And so he's like putting him, he's Nanda Maharaj, he's Krishna's father. Like, one could say he has a more intimate connection with Krishna. But he makes this prayer to Uddhava, who's Krishna's very dear friend. And Uddhava goes to visit, Krishna sends him to visit the Brajvasis, give them some relief, some his company, and feel the connection of Krishna. And then when he's leaving, Nanda Maharshi expresses some very heart-rending prayers, and one of them is included here later on. And then the one I was thinking of, which is similar to this, Karmar Bir Brahmyamananam Yatra Kwapish Vadechaya. I can't remember. But saying, that according to my karma and to the will of providence, let me wander this world as I'm supposed to. Let that whole thing continue. But my only prayer is that I can always remember Krishna. Karma, by the will of Ishwar, by the will of the Lord, and by the ordainment of my karma, then I may have to go through so much. But I only my only prayer is that I can always remember Krishna. Karma Brahmimananam Yacha Kwapi Sharichaya. I can't remember. But saying like that, just to have that remembrance, That's all. This is Nanda Maharaj. Let everything else play out as it's supposed to. I'm not a party to that. O Lord, I have no faith in religiosity, economic development, or sense enjoyment. May all these things come to pass as they are ordained, according to my previous karma. But my earnest prayer is that birth after birth I may have unflinching devotion for your lotus feet. Let me see if I can. I think I have it here. Let me see. Maybe not. It's okay. Okay. So, continue. Hari sambandha hinam sarvameva varjaniyam. Everything devoid of a relationship with Lord Hari should be rejected. Nayacha vaikunta kata sudhapaga nasadava bhagavatastad ashraya nayacha yagyesha maka mahutsavaha sudesha lokopi navaisa sevyatam. One should not reside wherever the river of nectarian tidings of Krishna does not flow, wherever Krishna's surrendered devotees cannot be found, and wherever the grand festival of chanting Krishna's holy name is not conducted, even if it is heaven. Prayers by the demigods. The demigods, they're actually devotees, like sometimes we give them a bad a bad rep, But I was reminded the other day, because I'm going through Brihad Bhagavatamrita again, and there are these descriptions of Lord Indra sitting there crying in ecstasy, like offering puja to Krishna, who appears as his younger brother in the form of Vamanadev, and he's offering worship and crying tears of ecstasy and of devotion. And then Lord Brahma also, they're actually devotees. They're actually devotees of Krishna. Of course, they're also within the, they're not, pure devotees, our line of, and they don't have, that line of, ideal that our gurus have, like Gurudev, he told at that occasion when the 12 Mahajans, they're celebrated throughout, Vedic history, for being so great and so elevated. Bali Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, I think Shiva is there in the 12 Mahajans, maybe Shukadev. So many of these great, exalted persons. But Bhakti, if they need advice, they turn to Bhakti Vinod Thakur. They can recognize him to be in a superior position. So no doubt, the line we are connected to, it is so high and so exalted. But still, at least myself, I have to remind myself the demigods are actually devotees. And of course Indra has his, and Brahma also, they have their moments with Krishna. But they are actually, devotees and have, great devotion for the Lord. So, now this is a very famous verse in Bhagavatam. Vyavaharika Gorvadayopi Pratikulam Chidvarjanya Eva. When the traditional guru and guardians are found to be unfavorable, they too must surely be abandoned. So to that extent, this principle must be followed. Even if one's guru or one's guardian, they are opposing this current, this culture, they also have to be rejected. So we cannot be fixed on any formal connection. And this verse was very dear to Srila Gurudev, and it was one of two verses in particular that very deeply inspired him when he first started hearing from the brahmacharis, from our mat, from Sri Chaitanya Saraswati mat. He was living in the village of Nadangat at that time, which is not so far from Navadvip, from our mat. And there, Srila Sridhar Maharaj had sent some group of brahmacharis there for preaching, and every day they would, I think in the evening, they would have a Bhagavatam discussion in the town center, the village center. And that really impressed Srila Gurudev. And it's interesting because Gurudev, he grew up in a Vaishnava family, and he knew Bhagavatam, he'd been hearing it since day one, But he said, Srila Gurudev commented, like they were coming from the line of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and their angle of vision on Bhagavatam was completely different. It was very fresh and much more profound. So he was really attracted, and he would every day go there, and eventually, he ended up playing Mridanga, because he was such a good Mridanga player. So they loved him, and he loved them. But in particular, there were two verses which he heard them explain, which really impressed him, and this was one of them. So we can hear that now. Gurur na sasyat, swajano na sasyat, pita na sasyat, janani na sasyat, daivam na tatsyan, napatishcha sasyam, na mochedya samupeta mrityam. One who cannot save other souls from the world of impending death, that is, one who cannot teach the path of devotion. He cannot be a teacher, although he may be called guru. He cannot be a relative. He is not worthy of the designation. He cannot be a father. He is not qualified to beget a son. She cannot be a mother. She should not bear a child. He cannot be a god. The demigods who cannot deliver others from material bondage are not entitled to accept worship from human society. And he cannot be a husband. His hand is not fit to accept in marriage. So all of these persons who normally have a very respectable position, if they cannot give us this most essential thing, what is really the only necessary thing for us, then we cannot consider them to really be worthy of their, so-called worshipable position. So that guru is not a guru, that relative is not a relative, that father is not a father, that mother is not a mother, that deva is not a deva, that husband is not a husband. And in Gaudiya Kantahar, there's another verse which is very nice. How does it go? But saying that that one's father, one's mother, one's friend is one who can give us Krishna consciousness like that. We will see things in relation to that. And then there's also some examples given in the scriptures for each of these cases, like when a devotee had to come to this difficult point, So, like the example of the father is easy. It's Prahlad Maharaj, right? He had to reject his wicked, demonic father, Hiranyakashipu, and then also Bali Maharaj. You're familiar with the story of Bali Maharaj? Bali Maharaj, he was actually the grandson of Prahlad, but you'll remember the story. It's a wonderful lila. He was actually a devotee, but in the early part of his life, he was in this mood like of a conqueror, and he conquered over the heavenly planets. So he had control for some period over the upper planets, then the earthly plane, and also the hellish planets. So the universe was in chaos, and so the devas, they prayed to Lord Vishnu, and he appeared as Vamana Dev, and he came in this very tricky form. He appeared. Vaman is this dwarf avatar, like charming boy dwarf, Bali Maharaj was performing some sacrifice in heaven, some grand fire sacrifice, and Vamana Dev came by and asked for some charity, as is customary for the Brahmins to, they're cared for by the Kshatriyas, by the rulers, and Bali Maharaj, yes, whatever you like, and I just want 3 paces of land. 3 steps of land. He's this tiny little dwarf boy. I just want 3 steps of land. and Bali Maharaj is like, what? I can give you anything. I can give you a whole country. What do you want? And Bali Maharaj and Vaman is insisting, no, this is all that I need. And then, of course, he expands into this huge universal form, and he covers everything. But the point here is that his guru, Bali Maharaj's guru, he's a very materialistic-minded guru, and he can recognize this is actually Vishnu and this is a plot,
Yes.
And so he tells Bali Maharaj beforehand, don't do this, he's going to trick you. This is actually Vishnu. Don't do it. But Bali Maharaj felt, I already made a promise, and he's a Brahmin. I'm obliged to serve the Brahmins, and even if he's going to trick me, it's okay. I have to do my duty. So he rejected his guru in that moment. So that is the example given of guru. And then I have some notes here. And then the example of the mother is Bharat, Ramachandra's half brother, because Ramachandra's stepmother Kaikeyi, she requested that she made this demand that Ramachandra's right to the throne be dissolved, and that instead her own son Bharat would be made king, and Dasharath, Ramachandra's father, he was obliged because he'd given this benediction to Kaikeyi that when she wanted, she could ask whatever she wanted from him. So Dasharath he couldn't object. He didn't actually agree to it, but he couldn't object at the same time. And he just died of heartbreak, basically. But Ramachandra, he took that responsibility. And so meanwhile, Kaikeyi is like really happy. Oh, my son's going to be king. And she was thinking her son would be happy about that. But Bharat was devastated, and he completely denounced his mother, because of what she'd done. And I mean, for us, coming from the Western culture, we can recognize that as a serious thing. But in the Indian culture, that is like, to reject your mother or your father, that's like rejecting God, like that's like a huge thing. So Bharat, he does that. He denounces his mother and disconnects with her completely. And later, things are resolved and she realizes her mistake. And then the demigods, there's the example given of Katvanga Maharaj, that he was a great king. He was an earthly king, a ruler on earth, but he was so powerful that the devas, they requested his help once because there's always this battle between the devas and the asuras, and the devas are always under threat, from heaven. This drama is always going on. So at one time the devas were under threat, and they've requested Katvanga Maharaj to help them because he was just so powerful. And so he did help them in their battle in heaven, and they were successful because of his help. And then afterwards, the devas told him, what can we do for you? Whatever you want, we can, within our power, we can bestow that. Katvanga Maharshi had some spiritual intelligence, and he said, well, first of all, can you tell me how much longer do I have to live? And they said, oh, well, actually, you only have one moment left. and so in that, and it's an extraordinary case, because in that, and it's an example given also for how, like, with one moment of full consciousness, you can get everything. You don't need so many ages of time. So in that one moment, he immediately left heaven and back in his his normal abode, completely surrendered himself to the Lord, wholeheartedly surrendered himself. So that example is given. He rejected the devas in that moment. And then for a husband, the Yagya Patnis, I think we told this the other day, that occasion when means the wives of the Brahmins, that occasion when Krishna and Balaram were hungry and were asking these sacrificial Brahmins to give them some food, and they said no, and those Brahmins, they forbid their wives also, but many of them disobeyed, and so they rejected their husbands, which is also a major thing, in order to serve Krishna. And it said some of them, their husbands like locked them up, and so they weren't able to go. But in their pain of separation, they actually left their bodies, and then in a subtle body they went. And I think it's maybe Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he has a very wonderful commentary on that this illustrates how the pain of separation, it creates a type of fire which can purify us of whatever impurities we have, because one can understand that those wives who were unable to go, they had some remaining impurity inconceivably within them, and for that reason they weren't able to go to Krishna. But through the pain of their separation, in the fire of separation, everything was burnt up, whatever impurities they had. And so in their next life, they were able to join with Krishna. And so we can understand that to be the most purifying thing the fire of separation. Oh, and then for a relative, one last example, Vibhishan, who is the brother of Ravan in Ram Leela, Ramchandra's Leela, because Ravan, of course, was enemy number one, but his brother Vibhishan was a great devotee, and he left Lanka to take shelter of Ramachandra. So he rejected his own brother. And that is a very beautiful pastime when Vibhishan comes. And we'll come to that. It's in here somewhere. There's a wonderful verse spoken by Ramachandra, because Vibhishan, when he comes, everyone's naturally suspicious. I mean, not everyone, but some, you persons there. And so he's like come to Ramchandra's camp, and then so someone goes to report to Ram, oh, Vibhishan is here, and then Ramachandra's sitting with some of his closest associates, advisors, and he consults with them. So what do you think? Can we trust him? And everyone has a different opinion, and naturally a number of them are very doubtful. Lakshman is doubtful. How can we trust him? We should imprison him, and he's probably a spy. And everyone has their opinion. Hanuman knows that he's actually a devotee because Hanuman had visited him in Lanka. But not everyone's convinced. But then Ramachandra, he hears everybody, honors everyone's opinion, and then he gives his own final conclusion. And he says, if somebody's coming to me for shelter, then it's my duty to give that to them, even if their intention is wrong. Still, I have to do my duty. I have to give shelter. Dandavad. It's very, very beautiful. It is an example of utmost nobility and dignity. Even if he's coming with bad intentions, even if he's coming to do me harm, I still have to do good for him. That is my concern. That I am on the right path. And there's some comment like he makes, like it is not a sin. If I were to neglect my duty, that would be a sin. But if I am sinned against, or I am cheated, that is not a sin on my part. Like he's only concerned with his own duty and the following the righteous path. And so if someone else is acting against him, then I will not, that's not a sin for me, Very noble, a very high way to live. Very wonderful example. So we'll come to that verse later. Okay. What time is it now? Okay. Read a few more verses. Sarvenjriya eva pratikul varjane sankalpaha. The resolve to reject everything unfavorable by means of all the senses. Madraksham shinapunyan kshanam api bhavato bhaktihinan padabje. Ma shosham shravya bandham tava charitam apasyanyad akyana jatam. Vaspraksham madhava tvamapi bhuvanapate chetasa panavanan mabhuvam tvatsaparya parikara rahito janma janmantare pi. This is Kulashekar. O Madhava, let me not see the unvirtuous persons who are devoid of devotion for your lotus feet, and let me not hear the narratives which do not describe your divine personality. O Lord of the universe, may I never have contact with those bereft of faith in you. And moreover, lifetime after lifetime, may I never be without the company of your associates who are devoted to your loving service. So this is the expression of someone who's living in such a subtle and high plane of devotion that it's actually painful to hear or see anything that's non-Krishna. We're like totally desensitized. But if we're actually like conscious and feeling what is our real wealth and real necessity, things which we actually like find pleasure in now, it'll become a painful affair to be exposed to those things. And Param Gumarsh has mentioned we can see this as one measure of progress, that we may have some previous company, some previous association, that we had some good company, we found pleasure there, but then after some progress, like hearing again those same things that you used to discuss with them, you may even feel some anger in your mind, like, why are you talking about this, or why are you doing this, those very, very same things, because of that transformation of consciousness. So this is describing this is an expression of highly evolved. So Vyavaharika Dharani Yanyapi Tuchavat Jyajani. One should also be indifferent towards commonly respected objects. Twadvakta saritam patim chulu kavat kadyotavad bhaskaram merum pashyati loshtravat kim apadam bhume patim brityavat Chinta ratnachayam Shila shakalavat kalpadrumam kashtavat samsadam china rashivat kimapadam deham nijam bhadavat. O Lord, your devotee sees the ocean to be as insignificant as a palmful of water, the sun as a glowworm, Mount Sumeru as a pebble, a king as a servant, wish-fulfilling gems as rocks, a desire-yielding tree as wood, worldly aspirations as straw, and he even sees his own body as a trifling weight to carry. He knows all objects unfavorable to devotion as trivia. Harivimuka Sangha Falasya Anubhuti Swarupam, a realization of the result of associating with those who are averse to the Supreme Lord Hari. Vadam Huttavaha Jvala Panjanantar Vyavastiti Nashodi Chinta Vimuka Jana Samvasa Vaishasam. One should endure the pain of being locked in a cage surrounded by blazing fire, rather than keep the distressing association of persons averse to Krishna consciousness. Anya Devo Pasakanam Sarupa Parichaya, the actual position of the worshippers of other gods. Alinganam Vada Manye Vyala Vyagra Jalokasam Nasanga Shalya Yuktanam Nana Devaika Sevinam. Better to be embraced by a snake, a tiger, or a crocodile than to suffer the agony of associating with persons who worship the various demigods. So these are very extreme expressions here. And no doubt the Vaishnavas, they have different moods, they also have the mood of accommodation, but they also, there's also this mood, and this is born out of extreme love, that so intensely, feeling affinity for this that one cannot tolerate to hear anything else. Okay. Oh. Okay, we'll read one more. This is Upadeshamrita again. We'll maybe we'll stop there because I probably want to go into this one a bit more deeply. Anything you want to add?
No.
Okay. Jai Sri Sri Prapanna-jivanamritam ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Deva Swami Maharaj ki Jai, Bhakti Sundar Govinda Deva Swami Maharaj ki Jai, Gaur Premanande.